You
You
gotta
got to
know.
know when to hold them. Oh, we got to.
Okay, start
Okay,
over.
so 2, 1. You got
You
to
gotta know
know
when
when
to
to
hold 'em.
hold them.
You gotta know when to
When to
hold 'em.
hold them.
Gotta
Know
know
when to
when to
fold them.
fold 'em. Know
Okay,
when
that's
to
enough.
stop singing and let Eric talk.
So Christy and I were singing The Gambler. We tried, but the podcast itself takes its cues from a line in Kenny Rogers' The Gambler, which is you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And we're going to talk about real estate cycles. You understand about the big real estate cycles. We're not talking about that so much as we are personal cycles within real estate investing. And if you stay in it long enough, you'll come to a crossroads and, well, do I hold them? Do I fold them? Please join us on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and a lot about the truth and the messy middle of real estate investing.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pessimist, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing. I'm one of your co-hosts, Christy Candle. I'm a developer, investor, and I teach locals how to become developers in their own community. And I'm joined today with my co-host, Eric Simbakken.
Hey, Christy. Yep, I'm a real estate investor. Also, a secret agent coming out and actually helping people buy and sell some properties here locally, though I have misgivings about the wisdom of that. I do invest in long-term and mostly short-term, and it is always exciting. Always exciting. I got a call from a law firm yesterday, said, would you like to be party named in a party as a lawsuit? And
Would you like to be?
yeah, really. And someone else is footing the bill for this. And would I be a named party? And I'm not going to say any more about that because it hasn't gone to court. And if it does, I'll say even less about it. But yeah, it's never boring, right?
Yeah, yes, never boring. Okay.
It is.
I think I know what you're talking about. So, okay, this could be very positive.
And so this podcast episode is actually inspired by a country song. Is it fair to call that country, Christy? Would you say that?
I think it is.
Okay. It's Kenny Rogers. So right there, it could say, yeah, probably. The Gambler, right? It's like, what do we talk about that is relevant in the real estate investing space? And the song, The Gambler, came to my mind, not because real estate is gambling, but because of the line, what is it? You've got to know when to hold them.
Know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run.
Yep. And boy, I tell you what, if you've been in real estate for a few minutes, you're like, actually, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And this is the topic of today's podcast, is basically cycles. When do you do what you do? Now, we can't answer this, and certainly we're not giving you advice. And if you take what we say as a sign, okay, that's between you and God. But we're not taking responsibility for having told you to sell, fold, run away, or be party to a lawsuit.
Nope. We are simply telling you what we're doing and the phase of life we're in.
Right.
And it's not the same.
And it's not the same. And here's the interesting thing. Christy and I are in different phases from each other. That doesn't mean we're out of phase. And we're not in the same place that we were 3-5 years ago. Right. And so it's like, wait a minute. You guys can be aligned in what you're doing and still not pessimists, but not at the same place. Like, yeah, absolutely. We can be not at the same place. And I think I stumbled upon this the other day on some social media. I try to limit this, but I do participate in it some. And I saw a silent disco. Have you ever seen video of that, Christy?
Yes. Do they have the headphones on and then they're...
Yes. And but here is what the really interesting thing is that I thought of real estate investing as a giant silent disco. But here's the trick. Everybody has different music playing. So you don't know if somebody else is over here just kind of going slow to some kind of ambient house music, and somebody else over there just they're pounding their head, their hair's flying, and you're like, what is wrong with them? Because what you're listening to is different than what they're listening to, and you don't know. And from the outside, we all look like maniacs, and people are like, what? You guys are all a bunch of raging morons. What's going on? Because they can't hear the music at all.
What are you doing? Yeah.
That's right. Because it's like, you guys are investing, and like, that sounds risky. That sounds dangerous. That's like, what are you even doing? And I thought, wow, that is such a great metaphor for real estate investing, is that you've got your music, someone else has theirs. Some people are hearing nothing at all, and you're all thinking everybody else is nuts because you're looking over there at the people who are not hearing it and going like, well, why aren't you moving? right? Well, they don't hear the beat at all. So we're going to talk about some cycles and what's going on. Let's talk a little bit about market cycles, and then we'll get to the concept of personal cycles. Why don't you take us into market cycles, Christy? You and I are both a little older than 5 years in the real estate game.
Yeah, I mean, I actually started my career in 2008 when we were having a huge dip in the real estate industry. And it actually changed the trajectory of my life because I came into businesses that were laying people off, but things got lucky because that's what happens when you put yourself in places for luck to happen. But ended up with a developer who started building Family Dollars in California. And that was the perfect time in a down market when people are hurting for cash and to start developing that. So we actually took off from a development standpoint when other people were like, whoa, we're going into foreclosure, all this bad stuff is happening. So that right there was the first and biggest example that I went, holy cow, like you can be going two different directions and both be correct at the same time. Hey, can we talk business for a second? If you've been flipping houses or running short-term rentals, you already know how to hustle. You know how to spot opportunity, add value, and make a property work harder. But if we're being honest, flipping gets exhausting, and short-term rentals are definitely not passive. So what's next? For a lot of people I work with, the answer is real estate development. I'm talking about turning a vacant lot into a quadplex, or bringing a rundown building back to life as a mixed-use space. I'm Christy Candle, and I've been a real estate developer my entire career, and now I host the Local Real Estate Developer podcast to help locals like you do the same. We pull back the curtain and show you what it takes to go from flipper or host to local developer. If you're ready to build something bigger, this podcast is for you. Check out the Local Real Estate Developer podcast on all platforms.
Yeah, that's so important. Okay. It's so important. If you have studied science at all, you understand what a wave looks like, right? I love physics, couldn't handle the chemistry, but there's just something about physics that I really appreciated. And waves and cycles and so on like that were very fascinating to me. And we want to bring out what might be a new concept to you is that we've all heard of market cycles. And I got into real estate in 2010. And people said, well, I wish I could have gotten in then when it was easy. Like, easy? No way. Everyone was scared. And they're like, is this whole thing going to crash? Have we hit the bottom yet? And in hindsight, it's super easy to see when the bottom was. But when you're in it, you don't know. And just a little word out there is that, yeah, you could put out offers and you got them accepted, but getting money, people were not lined up to loan you money to get into real estate. Let's just say the recency bias there was like, no, real estate equals disaster for the whole country. Let's not touch it. And so it was those few contrarians who were like, you know what? I'm going to get in now. And people from the outside, back to our music metaphor, were like, what are they doing? Like, what are they dancing to? That's insanity. And in retrospect, looked like geniuses, but at the time, it was scary.
And if you talk to any of them, yeah, you couldn't get a bank loan. What'd they do? They went out and they found private money and hard money. And they went and they had different relationships and were able to build those and bring those people along on that investing journey. But I think that's what's so key. Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can looking back. And it's the people who were willing to look at a situation, say, I think there's opportunity. I'm going to take action and I'm going to find a way. It's not going to be the same way that it was. I'm going to find a new way. And that's when you can win in business and real estate and life.
Yeah. Yeah. And so back to our gambler song here, there's a lyric in the middle that I wasn't as familiar with. I actually looked it up because I'm like, am I nuts thinking about like talking about the gambler here on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast? But down in the middle, and this is not repeated, this is just once in the song, the lyrics goes, every gambler knows that the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away and knowing what to keep. Because every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser. And that
the secret to surviving is, wait, no, I totally blew it.
I don't know what the next lyric is. That's what I wrote the other day.
It's how you play that counts. Yeah, there we go. It's how you play it that counts, because you can have pocket twos and you can take down pocket queens because of how you played that hand, and vice versa.
Yeah, and that's what it's like. Every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser. And so what we're going to talk about here is personal cycles. We've talked about real estate cycles a little bit, and everybody's heard of that. We understand that there's contraction and expansion and so on like this. But we want to propose that there is such a thing that as cycle is personal cycles. There's a time to do this and a time to do that. Ecclesiastes has there's a time to make peace and a time to make war and a time to speak and a time to be silent and all these other things. But I thought about this. I thought, why is it that we don't hear much about this in real estate spaces? I'm reading again or listening to Chad Carson's book, The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor. And he has it broken out into 3 parts, the real estate cycles that you go through. There's the starter. Obviously, you're just kind of figuring out like, what the heck? What am I doing? And then once you get a little bit of traction, you're like, oh, I get this, whether it's STRs or multifamily or single family homes or development or syndications, whatever it is, you start and you're like, you don't know what you don't know. Then you know what you don't know. And then you actually know some things. And then you enter the next phase, which is the builder phase. And we know a lot about that too, because a lot of podcasts, and a lot of talks, and a lot of summits and workshops have to do with that. But there's a third phase that almost never gets mentioned, and that's the ender phase. It's like, okay, once you've got this stuff, once you've built, you started and you built, well, then what? And I thought, well, why are there not more talks and shows and books and seminars about this? Is because there's not money to be made in it, unless you're a financial advisor saying, maybe you move your money into this. Because why would you have a workshop, and who is going to pay for that workshop to say, hey, now that you've built a portfolio and now that it's stabilized, it's time to sell it. And we've got some travel hosts over here and we've got a cruise ship over here and they'd like to talk to you about what to do with your money next, right? It's like, no, it's like, who's going to pay for that conference? Nobody, right? And so that's a part people don't talk about. So as a cycle indicates that there's a repeating pattern to some degree, right? And so before we started rolling, Christy and I were talking, saying that we're not in exactly the same place. So we're going to tell you where we are and why we are, so that when you hit it, or when you're starting to think about where should I do next, you get to choose, right? It's not just one thing. It's kind of like going to your silent disco or silent dance and then picking the music that you play. We're not telling you what to play. We're just telling you, you have a choice, right? One of my first transitions was when we bought our first short-term rental. We're like, wow, we thought this was going to barely break even. Now this is, keep in mind, this is close to 10 years ago, right? Markets have changed. Back to that word, cycles. We bought it and it did amazing. It did incredible. And then a couple of years later, it did half of what it did the year before. Why? Because everybody's, wow, this sounds great. Let's jump in, which wasn't 2021, by the way. That was 2018. It went through a cycle. And then we said, let's do this again. We did it again. And we said, let's do it again. This is the builder phase, right? And so what we did was we looked at some assets that we had and we said, it's been a good run for these long-term rentals. It's time to sell some of these into a different asset class. And this is really important, not because the first asset class didn't work and not because we were burnt out and just, let's say I quit. We shifted. We shifted lanes, right? And so, Christy, tell us a little bit about kind of your phase and cycle and what's up next.
Yeah, I went through a builder phase probably from 2018 to 2017 to 2021. And it was, okay, let's buy up short-term, midterm, long-term. Let's do value add. Let's get them stabilized. And then I actually went into a holding period from 21 to about 24, maybe even mid 25 to go, okay, I don't want more. Where I'm at right now with those assets, great. They're doing well. They're where I want them. I have other things in business and life happening. So I'm good just pressing pause and saying, let the status quo be the status quo. And now I'm at a new phase where we're doing something similar to what you said. And it's now repositioning our current assets to go, okay, we have some properties that are stabilized. There's not really a way to push more value or appreciation or cash flow. And it's time to go ahead and say, hey, we're calling them our boring properties. And we're like, let's sell a handful of these boring properties and 1031 into the next thing, which for us will be a boutique hotel. We've got the right team and partners at this point, and we know this because we've worked together for years, and our skill sets complement each other. So we're like, yeah, let's get rid of the boring ones, roll it into a new asset, and it's going to be able to be one where we can force more appreciation, force more cash flow, and it fits where we're in life right now. And then on top of that, we're also launching into our own developments in our communities, to where there's now a couple development projects that we're doing. And so that's another builder phase that we're going into. So repositioning and building.
Right. And there's a lot of reasons and motivations behind why someone would do this kind of stuff. As I was talking to, actually, it was a cousin of my wife's right before this. So if you're listening, Nursey, this is for you. Talking about standing outside and watching people run around on the field doing real estate investing is so confusing. Because you'll see somebody doing something, you're like, well, that looks like that's working. And then you watch them quit doing that thing that is like, well, why would you quit? I thought that was working. And the tricky thing is, yeah, it was working. There's nothing wrong with that. They decided to switch games. They decided to switch asset classes. They decided to switch from maybe cash flow to appreciation, or from cash flow and appreciation to forcing equity into a thing. Or maybe it's just like, you know what, I've got the money that I need. And this is crazy. I know some people are like, really, this happens? Like, yeah, this happens. You can get enough money from real estate. People talk about it and it's real, that you can live on that. It's never not work. If you think it's not work, you need to go back and look at our playlist and pick that podcast, because it's always work. But if you can get to a place where it's like, hey, it's stabilized and this is working, there's something about the kind of people that we are that just sitting still and cashing the mailbox checks isn't where it's at. I mean, Christy's never going to be the one, I just know this, who's going to sit there and watch Wheel of Fortune as she's sitting in her easy chair as she retired. It's never going to happen, or whatever show takes its place, because that's not who Christy is. And so once something has happened to a certain point, it's like, now it's time for something different. And that's a personal cycle. And if, as your listener out there, it's important to know that just because I switch gears in a thing and say, well, okay, this is what we're doing right now, or in certain cases, what we're not doing, doesn't mean that's right for you.
I'll give you an example of a personal example. So when I first moved to California doing development, I remember asking Family Dollar's attorney, because she had lived in Southern California but moved back to North Carolina. And I was just in love with Southern California, the opportunity, the weather, the people, the beach volleyball. And I was like, Lindy, how could you ever leave Southern California? It's so amazing. And she's like, well, life changes. And after a while, you're tired of driving 3 hours to go 3 miles to pick your kids up after school and stuck in traffic. And what used to serve you doesn't serve you anymore. Well, fast forward 7 years later, I moved to Tahoe. I left Southern California. So I think giving yourself grace and understanding that everything has a season. Some are shorter, some are longer than others, but understanding that you're going to grow a lot. And so your why and your purpose will change. And just being open to the fact that maybe doing long-term rentals or single family isn't worth it for you anymore, and you want to up your game. Or maybe you've done short-term rentals, they've been amazing, but you're like, that's way too hands-on, I need to pull it back some. Give yourself grace, allow yourself to make that change, because ultimately you get one shot at life. You better be happy doing it, and you better find things that fill your day with joy. And if something starts to feel too heavy, be willing to maybe call it.
Right. And so we've heard the phrase, moving the goalposts, and that can have a very negative connotation. It's like, well, I'll be happy when, which generally is like, that's not happening. Okay. It's just, we know this, psychologists will tell us that. If we make 100,000, well, if I make a 200,000, if I make a 500,000, but then if I make 1 million, and none of those things do it, right? Now, that makes it easier if your heater goes out to fix that problem. I'm not going to lie about that. It definitely makes that part easier. But personal satisfaction wise, it doesn't make it that much easier to do this. And so it's like, well, okay, the difference between, and I've heard this in psychology and books and so on, the difference between 100,000 and 200,000 is barely measurable. And the difference between 200 and 400 is negligible. 400 to 800 might even start getting negative. It's bizarre. You look up this, I forget the name of the exact psychological phenomena, but silver medalists in general are not as happy as bronze medalists. Okay? Because the silver
medalists lose
to
get their medal.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I could have got the gold, but the bronze is like, hey, I'm here. Like I could have gotten nothing. And so this is exciting, right? And so we do that in our business too. We get to like, it's silver. It's like, you've got a silver freaking medal in the Olympics, life wise, economics wise, portfolio wise, whatever. And you're upset, you're sad, you're disappointed. Yeah. Because personally, we realize that is the satisfying thing. And in case we start thinking it is, social media piles it on and says, no, it's not. I mean, which personal jet do you have? Like, I
Yep.
didn't know that was a thing, right? That was like, thought just you get a personal jet and you're in this different category. I heard a story of a guy who just about took his life because he couldn't get a certain particular type of jet and he felt like such a failure. Like, I just can't picture that. That is simply to say, the idea of moving the goalpost sounds so bad. But if you are intentional and saying, that is no longer my goal is now this, that's okay. And that's legitimate. My neighbor put this to me the other way. I just stopped and talked to him as I was driving home. We were talking about changing careers and just doing something different in life. And he said, yeah, what right does a 19-year-old have to tell me what to do for the rest of my life? And at first I thought, who's telling him what to do? And I realized, well, that's us.
Yeah.
Like, what right did my younger self have to tell me what I have to do for the rest of my life? And I'll challenge you this is, what right did the 10-year ago you have to tell you that you of today what you can or can't do? Maybe that you of 10 years ago said you can't invest in real estate, you can't do syndications, you couldn't do development. Well, what right does that person have to tell you what to do? They don't. Right? So it's okay to move goalposts as long as you're thinking about it and saying, no, actually, that's what I want now. And this is why you see some people move into areas of mentoring. And like, why? That doesn't really pay. It's because they've got the money. Like, they're paying their bills. They're okay.
I'll tell you what, my favorite thing right now, and I do a lot of mentoring for free, is to see when you're able to save someone the missteps that you took. And to not tell them what to do or how to do it, but to just share your experience and to share possible outcomes and things that could happen. And then to see them go, oh, and have the light bulb go, and to know that they're going to be that much further ahead. It's the most rewarding and fulfilling thing that I do.
Yeah. And so that's a goalpost that maybe 10 years ago wasn't quite as visible. It's like, well, I need to, and for me, it surely wasn't. I'm like, I got to figure out what I'm doing right now. Mentoring, yes, please sign me up for one. The idea that I might actually be one, not on my radar.
Yep.
Okay, but here we are. I got a call literally before we started this, and Christy gets them all the time. And so it's okay to move your goalposts, and it's okay to shift what you're doing. It's okay to, when we hear the idea of repositioning a portfolio, usually what comes to mind is, it's to get more money, right? It's because the return over here isn't as good. And I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, there's a time for that. And that's kind of like a player level 1 move to move your assets to get a better return. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and do it. But there's another level to why you would move asset classes, your time, attention, and focus. And that's my segue, Christy, to talk about Elevate and some shifting gears on your end. You couldn't, if you're listening to the podcast, you didn't see her smile just light up like that when I just said that word. But this is something that she's super excited about. And it's not about like, this is just going to make me a better ROI on my investment, because maybe not, but that's not why she's doing it. Christy, tell us about this cycle that you're headed into. I am co-host of this podcast because education is my calling. That's also why I developed a course on short-term rentals. It's called STR in an Hour, and it's perfect for busy professionals. It's a lot of content packed into 1 hour. No fluff, no upsell. It's an overview of STRs from A to Z. Everything from how to choose a property to how to estimate income and expenses. It's literally the best and most content I could pack into 59 minutes. With over 4,000 nightly stays in my own STRs, I've learned important lessons, and I want to share them with you. Link with more information in the show notes.
The culmination of my almost 20 years of experience in business and real estate. And for me, especially in 2025, I set the intention of relationships, connection, and collaboration. Because too many times early in my career, I put my head down, I charged hard after that goal, and I was going for that destination. I was going for that goalpost, and I forgot to stop and smell the roses along the way. And I missed a lot of the everyday, the ups and the downs, and I was just charging so hard. So with Elevate, it's a community destination. It's a community-owned project that built by locals, for locals, invested in by locals, and we're doing this together. Real quick, it's a 10-acre facility where we combine sports, wellness, and entertainment. And so it has a combination of all your pickleball, volleyball, basketball, but also it has indoor outdoor dog park, and also it has a food component to where we've got 6 to 12 local vendors who will be able to operate restaurants there, and maybe a teaching learning kitchen, and have different YouTube stars come in and teach, and then have nutritionists come in and teach people how to get the right food for their body. But we also have outdoor entertainment. So whether it's music, movies, have a lazy river going around that. And then we also add in the wellness component, because a lot of our places have entertainment and sports, but what about the mom with kids that wants to go do Pilates? And so we have childcare for that in the classes. And then we also have a wellness side. So stretching, cupping, scraping, cryo, sauna, just even a simple evaluation to be like, no, you don't have to go to the doctor and get referrals. Like, we've got athletic trainers here. They can help you get back on your feet. It's basically creating that third space for our communities, built by locals, for locals, invested in by locals. And to me, the most rewarding part is that I don't know how exactly we're going to get to a finish line, but I do know that it's going to take the entire community to make it happen. And we're doing daily posts, and we're already, I don't know, today was day 46, I think. The community support, the energy, there is such a need and a drive for this. We want a place that we belong. We want a place that we built together. And I am absolutely embracing and loving the ups and downs of every single day, going, well, I guess that land wasn't available. So, okay, that was a little bit of a downer. And then we go, okay, on to the next. And a couple other great things happen. So when you're building something bigger than you, it makes, and your why is so big, it just makes things so much more fun and so much more enjoyable. I'm like, I feel like a little kid who's just so happy and so filled with joy every single day, because what we're doing and what we're building just is so awesome. So, yeah.
So there's a lot of things happening in this. There's the development, which you have experience in. There's pulling together a lot of connections that you've spent a lot of time building, being very intentional about that. Is if you're starting in real estate and you hear people say things like, well, it's the connections that you have. It's knowing your local banker. It's knowing your local. It sounds fantastical. It sounds like like that doesn't happen. But here's what I will tell you is that all of these people are people just like you. They put on their pants one leg at a time. They shop and get groceries and do all the things, right? These are regular people, and you should be making connection with them, not just to get something out of them, but to give something,
to genuinely care and to give first. And you notice that, hey, go with the attitude of giving first, don't without taking, and you'll be very, very blessed and surprised at what the universe gives back if you genuinely care about the other human that you're looking at and talking to. Yeah.
So this is kind of making a big circle back, is knowing these people matters, because if you haven't been following Christy's Elevate Southwest Florida, you can find it on her social, and the connections that she's making, they're important. When you're talking about needing 10 acres in an already somewhat urbanized area, that's just not the same as like, gosh, I'm really looking for 10 acres. Where are you shopping? Central Kansas. Okay, you probably have a lot of options there, right? Your options are going to be like, well, actually, I got 100 acres. I don't know about 10. That's your problem there, right? But so she's going to have connections. Now, if you're developing in an urban area, to me, the codes and zoning and all this stuff is just, that's a lot. But it's what Christy knows, and she's met people who know the people. And this is really important, as this is the cycle she's starting on. Now, we did a podcast quite a while ago. Well, it wasn't quite a while ago. It depends on when it aired, right? We were thinking like, hey, we're thinking about doing this new thing together. We're thinking about partnering on this. And we thought about buying land and flipping land as we interviewed the Deatons, and we are not immune, because we are like all of you other real estate investors. We see a new thing, we're like, oh, that's shiny, that's new, let's do that. And for some people, in some ways, that's the thing you should do, and that's totally okay. But as it went along, and Christy was asking, like, what's her why? What does she want to do? What does she really want to do? And as I was asking myself, what do I want to do? We realized that wasn't the ticket. That wasn't really the thing we wanted to do. But, and this is really important, I think it was Eisenhower said that the plans are useless, but the planning is invaluable. And that's what happened to us, is that was in sitting down and saying, what do we really want, each of us as individuals? Where do we want to go? And we realized that's not taking us as individuals where we wanted to go. And so, no, we don't have a new land buying syndication business together, but the things and thinking about that made me realize that part of this is not actually what I want to do. So what do I want to do? And Christy went through that on her end. And then some of the ideas and the people that she met with started to coalesce. And it's like, wait a minute, maybe we'll do that.
And it gave clarity, and clarity is what then gives us the inspiration to go forward into that next thing of whatever it was, which was totally different for both of us.
Yeah. And for me, I'm a bit more in a push pause phase. Because there's a number of things that are up in the air. I will obliquely mention the call from a lawyer asking would I want to be part of a lawsuit. That's up in the air. There's a lot of numbers involved with that. And so that is the thing where I was like, you know what, maybe right now is a time just to push pause. And what my wife and I have said is that we'll do a deal when it's a 10 out of 10, not an 8 out of 10, because normally you just like, hey, look, here's my criteria, my buy box, which also is one of our great episodes, is having that buy box. And, an 8 out of 10 is usually, that means go most of the time. Because if you're expecting 10s out of 10s all the time before you move, chances are you'll never move. You might get a 10 out of 10. But right now we're saying, no, for us right now, until we get a little bit more organized no, it's not organized.
You've just got too many variables with what you're currently doing to be like, why would you go take on something that's a brand new and bigger challenge when you know that you already have all these balls that are juggling that haven't settled yet? That might be what we call maturity.
It could be. I hope so. I'll take that as a compliment. But one of the things that I did, I work with an accountability group, and we meet on a regular basis and we share what our goals are. And a couple of weeks ago, one of my goals was to build not a to-do list, but a to not do list. And one of our past guests, Stephanie Lombardo, she and I are still in touch a little bit. And she says, okay, hey, here's a video. I want you to send this, watch this. And it was about this same topic about focus. And I could write back to her and said, funny thing that you would send this. I actually started a to not do list. And so I literally, and this doesn't give me joy because I understand this is difficult for other people, but I started calling and messaging people and saying, hey, I have loved being part of what I'm doing with you. However, I need to step down. I need to cut back. Some things I'm out. Some things are like, hey, instead of my regularity and cycle being this, I've got to really lengthen that cycle between when I can participate. And that's important. We need space. In Keith Cunningham's book, The Road Less Stupid, over and over and over again, he hammers the point. You need thinking time. You need time to step back and be intentional and say, wait a minute, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing here? Again, Christy and I were messaging off air here before and just talking about, we get so busy playing the game that we just play harder. And seldom do we stop and say, well, wait a minute, should I even be playing this game? Or have my goals changed, my goalposts? Should I move them? Because maybe a long time ago, I passed what I had once set as my goals, and I realized now it's time to change objectives. So it
can be hard at times because you have teams that you've built. So if you're going to sell some properties or you're going to change business plans, there are teams that are in place that are going to be impacted. And so then you think, oh, well, they're going to lose some employment or they're going to lose this or that. And it makes you go, oh, should I do it? But that's where you have to understand what was the initial goal? How have you and life evolved? And then respectfully, but choosing to put yourself and your life and your purpose first, because ultimately, if it's run its cycle with you, then most likely it's also time for the other parties to move on as well. And it's just, again, seasons. Nothing lasts forever.
Yeah. And as we get ready to shift it, I want to talk next, Christy, about how you have started to incorporate some of the lessons you've learned from development and STRs and all kinds of things into your next phase or phases. But before we leave this point about you changing and how it impacts others, is that you should not let the expectations of others dictate what you do, unless the expectations of others are, well, I certainly hope that this person is diplomatic, that they are honest, which you should. In that case, you should do that, right? But those are principles that you may need to say, I need to resign from this, or I want to take this on. But if you do it with honesty, you do it with clarity, you do it with integrity, then sometimes you need to do it. To not do it just to avoid the discomfort of a conversation, that is the wrong answer. Okay, if you know the answer is for you to move, to refocus, to consolidate, scale up, move, whatever it is, but you don't want to do it because you're afraid of what other people may say or think, or if somebody start telling you like, you can't do that to me, you're that blah, 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 it's like, okay, what they're telling you is they want to keep the benefit that they got, but they're not really concerned about your growth and your change. Just be listening for that. And when that happens, you just have to say, well, I'm sorry for you, but this is what I need to do here.
Well, someone that just recently came into my world was talking to me the other day, and I was sharing my experiences, and she's about 10 years younger. And she's like, okay, my friends keep telling me I need to slow down and I need to enjoy life and I need to do this and that. And she's in her 20s. And she's like, but I really love what I'm doing. And you clearly, you're a badass. You've done this. What would you do in my shoes? Because I did share that now I'm relationships, people, connection, collaboration, and I'm really prioritizing that. And she's like, should I slow down? Should I smell the roses? And I'm like, girl, you go big and you go hard. The reason those people are telling you to slow down is you are now making themselves look into a mirror and hold themselves accountable for what they're not stepping up to the plate and doing. If you're getting energy from this, you go charge as hard as you can into that. And it's just, you will have people who want to hold you back, because by you going forward and you stepping into your purpose and you going after what you want, they're going to feel bad and guilty about not taking the same charge and same control in their life and truly living up to their potential.
Right. Yeah. So just expect that. When you step forward and you move on, there'll be other people who don't want you to, because they get something from the status quo, and you don't owe the status quo to stay there. Right. Yep. So Christy's moving. She's growing some new things. So how have you incorporated? Because some may see this like, well, if you're transitioning out of something, that's a loss. I mean, like, you wasted all that time in STRs. But how is that past experience in development, relationship building, STRs? How are you integrating that stuff consciously into what you're doing next?
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll start with development. By me going out and getting exposure with all sorts of different asset classes and working throughout the country, that opened multiple doors for me to understand how deals even get structured, the complexity of it, how they get funded. And I was thinking the other day, I'm like, wow, I didn't actually understand how the first developer I worked for made money, because I thought they only got this tiny little fee that they were paid. And what I realized later, no, they also still own the dirt, and they packaged up all those properties and sold them to a REIT. And so that little fee, that paid some of their overhead. When they packaged them up and they sold multiple locations to REITs and other private equity, that's where they made the real cash. Same way in development, when I started doing shopping centers and you're developing new out parcels and multi-tenant buildings, and you have, I don't know, probably like 20 or 30 tenants, and they all have their own work letter criteria for how you're supposed to deliver their spaces to them. And it's a negotiation and a work in progress. Understanding all of those nuances of how it comes together and all the moving pieces, all of that exposure and experience has now led to why Elevate can be such a complex project, because we're going to be developing 10 acres, but there's so many uses within that that I can use that experience to go, I now know the right teams and partners to bring in, because this is how we should structure X, Y, and Z, and it makes sense. And that clarity is what allows me to explain to the team, here's how we can do it, and make it make sense to them as well. All of that has played a huge role. And it now allows me, so all of these smaller partnerships too. So if I have smaller multifamily, that taught me how to, because my first business, I was the solo owner. Real estate investments, those were partnerships. So it taught me how to work with different people and to understand dynamics. And there's a little give and take, and knowing how to properly structure agreements and roles and expectations so it works together. And some partnerships didn't work, and there were some that did. And that allows me to know, when we talk about maybe selling some multifamily, smaller ones, and going into a boutique hotel, that gives me pure confidence and clarity to know that the partners that I'm rolling into that next one are not only the right ones because we have synergy, but we're all ready to level up at the same time. So we're all in that spot. So the ones coming over are going to be the ones who are there and are ready. And it is more risk because it's larger, but at the same time, we have such a solid foundation and the confidence that we can make it happen. And then on top of that, so 2024, I started Local Real Estate Developers after my community got destroyed by Hurricane Ian. And I realized we don't need more outside developers coming in to build in our community. We need to empower our locals who understand what we want and need and what's missing. And so by then teaching and mentoring locals, it reminded me what it's like to start something new that scares you, but to do it anyway. And it reminded me of the joy and the passion and the energy that you get when you start something that you don't know what the outcome will be, that you're not necessarily as good at. And all of that just tied into, yeah, Elevate is crazy and complex as hell. And it's so fun and it's so enjoyable, and pulling in the right people who just bring energy. And I say it all the time, we're sprinting a marathon over here. Just am amazed every single day at the people that at least once per day, sometimes twice, someone new and amazing comes into our sphere that then joins our team, whether it's development, operations, just a strategic partner who can help move the needle in a certain market. And being able to then take me putting my head down, running and charging after a goal and realizing it's the journey, not the destination that matters. And even taking that and going, I am really enjoying this journey. It is not all up. It is not all down. And I'm so excited to see what every day holds.
Yeah. So I want to underline a few parts of what you're talking about here. As we talk about cycles, and the cycle that you're into now is that early in a real estate investor's career, one of the first things that you have to do is just understand the concept of like, what does this even mean, right? How does real estate investing work? What in the world? And then what happens, and this happens, if you did not know this as your listener, is that I spent over 2 decades, depending on how you want to count it, 3, as a professional photographer. And a lot of photographers get stuck in the same place. And that place is technical. It is the technical operations and nuts and bolts of what it is you do. Like first is the concept, and then it's the technical. And some people get fixated on this. And the technical can be, in single family homes, it's like, okay, so how do you buy it at the right price? And how do you set your rent? And how do you force appreciation? And then how do you do your advertising and so on like this? And a lot of people get stuck there and they stay there. And they may get very good at that part and in the technical stuff. And this is where the arguments come in. It's like, well, which is better, Nikon or Canon or Sony or blah, 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 right? That's where the arguments get shallow. The next level, and one of my book that really it grew on me because after I listened to it, it was called What Got You Here Won't Get You There by business coach Marshall Goldsmith. The more I see after I've read that, I'm like, okay, I can see this happening. Is that your problems start out as just working hard enough, just showing up on time, like just really basic stuff, and then being basically competent at it, and then getting technically competent at it and excellent. But what got you there to that level won't take you to the next level. And that next level, did you hear a lot of the things that Christy was talking about are people? That's the next level. It is people and connections, because you at the level of execution she's talking about. Can I say the number of how much you estimated this is going to cost, Christy?
Yeah, it's public. It's out there.
Yeah, was it 130 million? Was that that the number?
130 to 140 million.
Okay, I'll say that again. $1 million. That's a lot of dollars. It's very unlikely that one person is going to have enough technical excellence or know-how over an entire lifetime to pull something like that off and have it succeed. It's just not happening. Okay. And so most of the time what people do is they stay small. It's like, well, okay, fine. If I can't do $130 million, I'm just not going to go because I can't do it. Well, guess what? Christy knows a lot of stuff, but she can't do it either. But it's not stopping her because she shifted into that next level above and beyond technical, which is people. That's the next level that will get her to what's going on. And that's the cycle that she's going into. And she's leaning in hard on this.
And just to put that in perspective, because I want to give people the belief that, no, it is possible. Because I know, knowing everything I know about development, yes, we're going to raise capital. We're going to do crowdfunding. We'll have nonprofits. But it's a huge number. And I just had one of my partners, she's like, explain this to me. But even if you take it simple and we say, okay, in Southwest Florida, there's 1.3 million people. And if we need 130 million, that means literally every person just needs to give $100, which no. Is every person going to invest in this? No. But if you go, whoa, if this literally is a community project being built by locals for locals who say they want it and invested in by locals, it's really not that much. So if we truly want this, we can find a way to make it happen.
Right. And so when you start breaking it down like that, it's not crazy. You look at the money that the local governments spend on things, it's somewhere between shocking and horrifying, maybe a little inspiring if you want to do development. But all those things are true at the same time. And this is simply to say she's starting into a new cycle of things, and I am not at this moment. Will I be involved in it in some way? Possibly. Yeah, we haven't figured out where, in total candid honesty here. But that's okay, because if the right thing shows up, we'll both know it. We'll know it, and we'll be ready for it. But right now, I'm at a different cycle, and I have to be okay with that, right? Because we can want something. If you've ever sold a house or sold anything, there's the what you want to happen versus what is happening. And we can want all those other things to happen so badly, but sometimes they just don't, and they don't happen on our time frame. And that's in some ways where I'm at with some of my things. Some of our investments and some of our things, like, I wish it would be, but it isn't. I can't wish it to be in existence. I think the most frustrating experience I ever had with that was fishing. It wasn't actually business. I was fishing a salmon run, and I could see hundreds of salmon headed upstream. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. If they were bricks, you could have walked across the river, but they wouldn't bite. And I couldn't will them to bite, right? They were interested in something else entirely at that point. And sometimes our lives are like that, is that we want the things to happen. We want that thing to sell. We want that offer to come through. We want them to see our overtures and respond, but they're not. We want things to align, but they're not. And you have to know, this is just me telling you, I'm in one of those cycles where it's like, I wish a lot of different things, right? But it's just not. And
I'm just coming out of that. And I'll tell you what, when I went through it, I was just like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I find anything that works, that doesn't feel heavy, that isn't sticky, and you start to question everything, and you're just like, what is going on? And what I realized is sometimes when you were talking about it, we have to get rid of the things to then create the space to then allow the universe to say, hey, now you're ready. Because they can't give you what you're wanting now because you've got too much stuff in the way. And it's like, okay, all right, I'm stripping it down. I'm looking inward. I'm trying to figure this out. And it's just the season of life that you go through, and the ebb and the flow. And yeah, it's a cycle. Like we're talking about, everything will come back, and you're going to be really, really, really happy and grateful when you come out of it. And you're going to be so much stronger and better. And it's not like you went back down to where we start. We never go back down to where we started. We do little dips, but we're always trending upward, and we're always learning and growing along the way. So everything that feels frustrating and heavy, I just started to smile and go, I'm growing. Yeah. I don't know what I'm growing for or where to, but I'm growing.
Yeah. And it's entirely possible. I'm just going to throw this out. This is real time. By the way, listeners, this is real here. Okay. So yeah, we plan things, we outline things, but we don't script them. All right. And this is the honest, messy middle. And this is why this is the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, is because if it were the shiny, polished podcast, guess what we would do? Christy would either be faking it and telling us that she had all kinds of investors lined up and all this kind of money, and you want to do this too, and do you want to take courses from her so you can do it too? But she's not. We're telling you this is what's happening real time. Or I could just say, I've got it all figured out. Follow my 7-step guaranteed course to success, $10,000, blah, blah, blah. It's not true. Okay. It isn't true. And so this is real time. We're telling you this is messy in the middle, is figuring this stuff out, is figuring out, okay, what's next? And when do you lean in and really work? And when it's time to lean in and work, it's work. It's time. It can be light. This is really important, is that just because Christy's smiling and saying she's excited about it doesn't mean it isn't work. It's work.
And it doesn't mean I don't second guess myself, and I get to certain parts of the day and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And then I go, oh crap, now I've told everyone, so now we have to do it. And then I go, shut up. Like, you want this. You want this so bad. And this lights you up and this makes you smile. Get out of your own head. Yes, you are going to have curveballs. Get out of your own head.
But by doing this, and this is where I want to go with this, but by doing what she's doing, maybe, and I hope Elevate Southwest Florida goes according to plan and it's all amazing and just incredible. But even if it doesn't, there will be something that grows out of this. Someone, some community will see this and say, wow, okay, I love what you're doing here. We don't need a sports complex, but we need a new children's museum. And our budget's not 130 million, but we've only got 75 million. Can you put this deal together? Wow, guess what? You don't get into the $75 million deal by not trying the one that's 130 to 140.
I had a quote that was on our wall growing up, and it said, "Shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll be among the stars." So when I had my wild and crazy goals, that surprise, they came true. So I need to dream a hell of a lot bigger now. But if you did that, if you set that impossible goal, the whole thing I told myself was, if I set that goal so far out there, I mean, I was a kid from a town of 2,500 people in Ohio, and owning a house wasn't like even something people like us did, let alone becoming a developer and owning tons of rental properties and doing this like that. That wasn't for people like us, but I thought it was. And I thought I could do and be whatever I wanted. So by setting that impossible goal of shooting for the moon, and if you miss, you'll be among the stars, how much further did you get because you at least tried to go get it?
Yeah. At one point, like our end goal, we talked about this and we said, if we had 5 rentals, that would be like, that's the end goal. That would be amazing. That would just solve everything. That would be the end. And we could just put down the ball and quit playing. And we don't have those rentals anymore, but no, we didn't quit. And we've been intentional about, sometimes intentional, sometimes not, about moving the goalposts. And right now I'm in a cycle where I am like, what is next? And I got some other crazy goals that I'm working on, unrelated to real estate. But the point is that you will have cycles and they will look different. And you can choose to do something different than you did before, or what people told you could or couldn't do. And we're telling you, you're not crazy if you're dreaming big and outlandish, wild stuff that's like, how in the world can this happen? It's the epitome of the big, hairy, audacious goals. And it's okay also if you're in a place where like, I need to push pause and think about what my next step is. Because back to Keith Cunningham's book, The Road Less Stupid, is thinking about what you're doing and what your next step is, the step that we avoid consistently. Everything out around us is set up to keep us from thinking. It's like, oh, let's go to the softball game. Oh, let's watch that game on TV. Oh, let's scroll TikTok. Oh, let's go shopping. Oh, let's fight with somebody on Facebook about the latest thing. Because guess what? There will always be something you can fight about. Something on the internet or in politics is always doing something dumb. And they keep raising the bar.
Yep.
And so that could, in fact, suck up all of your time and attention easily. But to think about where you're going next and what is next is okay. And it's all right to think about, well, how will I play the cards that I have? Because, back to the song, every hand's a loser, and every hand's a winner, and every hand's a loser. It's how you play it that counts. And that's what we're simply saying, is that it's okay to be in cycles. That's the reason that the Real Estate Pessimist podcast started, is because what we saw in the marketplace was that only part of the cycle that anyone was talking about was the peak. And they would go from peak to peak to peak to peak to peak with every guest and never talk about the rest of life, which is, by the way, if you haven't listened long enough, it's not true. It's not all peaks and summits. There's a lot of journey. There's some valleys and stuff like that in between. So that's why we do the podcast, and that's why we're telling you about our cycles right now.
I love it. So guys, if you enjoy the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, please like and subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple. And if you could leave a comment, if you could do a rating, or just share. We post on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and just share and put it out there, because what we try and do, yes, it's real estate focused, but it's also life focused. And we just want to help as many people as possible. So thank you again for listening to the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing. See you guys next time.